You may be seeing headlines out there, you may be seeing the general critics' consensus and reviews and stuff like that. I still think you should play the Callisto Protocol. I think it's something worth experiencing at some point. And if you're a certain type of player, a fan of certain things. Now, full disclosure, the PC version as of right now seems completely borked. It's getting review bombed on Steam because it's technically unplayable or stuttering for a lot of people, and that is unacceptable. Also, on the other hand, it's a pretty short game, dude. And, you know, for games being like $75 now and with it just having 3 difficulty modes, no new game plus, not really a lot of replay incentive, it's a tough sell. But it's one of those ones where down the line, flaws and all, I think you should still play it because I ultimately still ended up getting what I wanted here. Now, just so you know, if you're new over here, I put out the big before you buy video on Game Ranks where I go really in depth. Here on this channel, I like to kind of just turn on the camera and yap a little bit more about how I feel. The gut feeling discussion. I love dissecting this stuff, so don't yell at me. I literally like picking out the good and bad things about things. I think it's more fun to talk about than just shit on things, but I do feel like I'm in the minority with the Callisto Protocol in terms of colleagues and stuff. Reviews are all over the place. I've seen a 5 out of 10. I've seen higher reviews. I think it's all right. I think it's like the perfect example of, and I don't score things, but like, you know, it's one of the perfect examples of like a 7 out of 10 game. It's all right. It's got some flaws. It's got some big hits and misses. Not really quite worth the full price admission, but it is a straightforward linear adventure, and that was pretty much what I wanted. It's just not the most stellar one. It felt like it was going to be a slam dunk, right? I mean, me personally, I know a lot of you guys too, I had gone on record, like this was one of my most anticipated games. It looked pretty sweet, and then I didn't watch a lot of trailers after the first gameplay reveal because I was like, I know what it's going to be, roughly. I want to play that, you know, so let's go. And I think some people are seeing some of these reviews and getting angry, let down. I've gotten flack online just for saying that I think the game's okay. Like, I still think it's worth playing at some point, but it's all right. And I get it, because a lot of people were putting their hopes and dreams in this one because it's like a classic, regular old video game. I keep saying that video game-ass video game. I didn't come up with that quote. But part of the reason why most recently I liked Evil West, because it just felt like a game we would play, you know, 10 years ago or so, where it was just like a simple game. It was cool. You played it, you finished it, and you're like, all right, cool. And that's the Callisto Protocol. I played through it and I was entertained. It's a game that I can absolutely critically rip apart in a lot of ways. And I get where a lot of the reviewers are coming from, but I was still entertained. I found myself continuing to sit down, looking forward to playing more. I think it is a jack of all trades, master of only a couple of things. The story, I didn't really find too fulfilling. It was really simple, but aesthetically, atmospherically, you know, gore, tension, some of the mechanics, I just really liked experiencing it, going through it. The first, people were already yelling at me because they played the beginning of the game, right? The first half of the game, really the opener, is really damn good. And then it starts to lose steam as it goes on. It kind of maybe like runs out of situations or something like that. And where that second half falls apart, I get why a lot of reviewers are not into it. But I still just found myself continuing to play. I just wanted to see what was going to happen next. There's not a lot of story, but I still wanted to have my questions answered. Ultimately, the questions were answered and it was kind of like, whatever. But it also kind of serves as this big, dumb, fun carnival ride that, yeah, is absolutely not a 10 out of 10 type game. There is power sometimes in a game not being a 10 out of 10. But this game is just like this big, dumb gore fest that goes hard. It's spooky. You walk around, you see nasty stuff. The death animations for the character are so over the top and hardcore. It's actually kind of like ridiculous and obnoxious sometimes, but you gotta commend them for just going all in on that. We don't see that. And I guess I just kept playing because I was like, all right, let's see what's next. All right, what else you guys got, you know, consistently. I mostly enjoyed the journey. There's some bullshit moments, specifically the last boss, and just certain things with the combat. The combat for me, it's like a 3-tier thing, and I think 2 of the 3 things are good. The shooting, I think, feels pretty tight. It's pretty satisfying, blowing limbs off of things. While it's not like as much the main focus as something that it was inspired by, like Dead Space, it's there. The weapons are cool. All of them, or most of them, are pretty useful. And then there's the like telekinesis, like the glove to be able to pull enemies towards you and throw them at things, like, you know, throw them into explosive barrels or throw them on some spikes or into each other. And that feels pretty good. It's very easy to pull off. It's limited, but it feels good to use. And then there's the melee, and the game goes hard on the melee. There's quite a bit of it. And it's pretty simple. It's really one note. It seems like it's hard at first. It's definitely not designed for squaring up against more than one enemy at once, so it kind of falls apart. But once you figure out the dodging, most of the time it's fairly easy, but it's just so weird to get used to because the way they design the dodging is pretty questionable. I don't understand what they were really thinking with it, where it's like you just hold a direction before an enemy swings at you with the movement button. So if you hold left to dodge, your character starts moving left, but then the dodge will trigger and he'll go like that. But it doesn't matter which direction you're holding it. If an enemy swings at you, you hold it, and it dodges, and then you just need to turn in the opposite direction to get that next hit. So it's kind of like this back and forth thing. Susie Sphere Hunter, the completionist, a lot of people have really referred to it kind of as like Mike Tyson's Punch Out. And it's straight up what it is. But it's weird because it almost feels disconnected. It's not like a dodge button would work. It feels more like how a QTE would be. You know, the things in games where like an on-screen prompt happens in a cutscene where it's like press triangle or move left to make the cutscene happen. Like, it feels like that. And that isn't great. It's cool in practice and in small moments, but ultimately it's kind of weird. And that's disappointing because like while it is simple, like the crunch of the hits, the slow deliberate nature of it all the gore, all the messiness, some really cool finishers and stuff that actually are sometimes contextual, like with the wall and stuff like that, it's pretty satisfying. The feedback, the vibration, or at least the haptic feedback on the PS5 controller, all that stuff is pretty tight. It's just the way it goes down and like the actual mechanics of it, like the video game-ness of it, it's not always super fun. It's a hard thing to explain. You can watch a Twitch stream or you can watch a YouTube video and be like, that combat looks awesome, but it's something about how you feel it in your hands. I don't know. There's a lot of emphasis on that melee, but then like there's a point in the game where it just kind of ditches it. And then it's like, oh shit. Now, on the one hand, I will say like I do really like all the skill tree stuff. There's like a weapon upgrade tree for your melee weapon, all your guns, and I like that. Not to repeat myself in the before you buy, but like it's not super survival horror-y, but there is enough resource management and scarcity that it kind of works, and I found myself hoarding stuff to sell it and upgrade my weapons as best I could because I wanted to see where those trees went, and most of the time the upgrade paths for the weapons were pretty satisfying. I always like that in games. When they pull that off, that makes me happy. But there's not a lot of enemy types. It's only really shaken up a couple times throughout the game. There's like a not that great mid-boss that is repeated, and then again, like I said, an end boss that's just kind of... And yet despite that, it still felt paced fairly well. You're always kind of moving along. You're always seeing a new environment, not new enemies, but everything else. New situations, just new completely different areas of the game. And what I like is that all of it felt cool. I wanted to see it all. You know, it starts out in space jail, and it gave me, Chronicles of Riddick Escape from Butcher Bay vibes. Then you move on to like space labs, space caves, and stuff like that, like stuff we've seen in video games before. But I just like the way they did it here. The art is really good. Stuff is really, really well detailed, and I just like kind of going through and really just kind of experiencing it all. I played with headphones, I played it in the dark, and I enjoyed it for that. It's not very scary. It's scary at first, but they reuse some stuff, and that's a bummer. But there are just some incredibly cool, inspired sequences, like you see a hallway at one point filled with fog, and you have to walk towards that fog knowing that there's something behind it, and it's just some pretty decent tension. The outdoor snow sections I thought were pretty incredible, from the way you encounter enemies to the imagery. I just really like that. Little moments here and there when you're crawling through vent shafts, some cool surprises. Can you tell for every good thing in this game, there's like a bad thing? But for me, nothing was really a complete disaster. I think the only thing was that the story, like, I saw it coming. There's not a lot to it. It actually kind of retreads a lot of Dead Space ground, but not as good, and that sucks. I was really hoping that they would do something a little bit more out there with this and then set up something else, but it felt just kind of like, bleh, and I felt kind of like, oh man, did they just dupe me into paying $70 to play kind of Dead Space again? Because it had a lot going for it. They had these actors, like the two leads are famous actors, Kamiko from The Boys, and also Josh Duhamel from what was he in, like Transformers and Call of Duty World War II, which I guess that makes sense why he's in this. But yeah, also Sam Witwer. I fucking love Sam Witwer. Anytime he shows up, I'm so happy. You may know him as Deke from Days Gone to Starkiller in Force Unleashed to actual Darth Maul. Like, he just has a presence, and I always get excited when he shows up. And here, I feel like they wasted his potential. We could have gotten so much more of him. They did do some fun stuff with him that I was like, hell yeah, but it felt like we just barely were getting started. So again, this kind of comes back to the Order 1886 comparison, where it just kind of like was a small little slice experience. It was almost like, I don't want to go as far as to say a tech demo because that sounds mean, but it did feel like just kind of a smaller like use case example, like a vertical slice of something that could have been wilder and crazier. A proof of concept where in this case it's harsher because there was already something very similar to it, Dead Space. And this I don't think really pushed things far enough in a new direction. It is comfort food, yes, just more Dead Space type of game, but with little variations and incredible graphics. I will say that the visuals and the sound design here are like pretty fucking top tier, man. Jacob Lee, the main character, like looks like a real person, and especially like when he has the visor on, it just looks so real. There's a pretty good photo mode. It's not the best, but there is a photo mode to take advantage of this stuff, and he just looks really convincing from his animations to the look, everything. One of the kind of idle walking animations, he'll like look behind him frantically, and he almost like looks at you, the player, and it's like, whoa, like he's real enough where it actually kind of is unnerving. So like it is absolutely like an impressive showcase of what this new studio that it was built up for this striking distance can do in the future. It was them and collaborating with and contracting with smaller studios, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else they can do. A lot of people were excited for Callisto. It seems like still a lot of people are digging it. So if it does well enough and they fix the PC version and whatever else, I am looking forward to seeing what comes next with this. But the end of the story for the Callisto Protocol didn't really leave me like, oh yeah, what's next, dude? Because it was stuff I'd seen before and there wasn't really a lot of it. So again, it sounds like I am totally ragging on this game, but these are my favorite types of games to talk about. The ones that are all over the place in reviews, and also the ones that are just straightforward, linear, regular adventure games. I love those, and I love them when they have issues like all the ones I pointed out here. I think this, though, like so many other games and so many studios and stuff like that, they got to get their shit together with like releasing the game technically sound, because PC people are left in the dark right now. I've heard of some issues on Series X, so like that's not great, especially considering like they want to do season pass content for like the single player game, which I'm not into at all. It was a cool, gross, grimy space adventure that looked really good, sounded really good, had some great moments, and also, you know, has some elements that aren't so great, but also just like some stuff that's not going to be as memorable as like some of the other games it was inspired by. But again, because these are my types of games, like I look at it as a movie. Like I was like, all right, I played through that, I experienced that. Yeah, it wasn't my favorite, but I was happy I was there. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not trying to like, this isn't like coping. Like, I'm not trying to justify, but like, I appreciate the game. And even with like some of the frustration with some of the elements and the missed potential, I still was entertained throughout it. Basically, I don't do, but like, gotta respect the like rent, buy, wait for sale thing that somebody like ACG would do. So for this one, I would definitely chalk it up as like a wait for sale type of thing, but I definitely think it is better than a lot of people were suggesting. I think some of the flaws are definitely baffling, but as just like a quick little adventure, a little 10-hour thing, one and done, entertained. There's gore, there's flashing lights, there's creepy hallways. That's what I signed up for, and I got that. Ain't my game of the year or anything like that, but it is a video game that you play and you kill things in space. I'm looking forward to talking about this more in depth with other people that like it less than me, like on the Friends Per Second podcast, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm pretty sure that's gonna be a pretty spicy conversation with me and the gang, but I hope you get what I'm trying to get across here. Like if you see the reviews and you're bummed out, you're disappointed, I'd say still give it a shot eventually, especially if like these types of games are your bread and butter. Before I was even a reviewer, I've seen so many of these where they're like mostly good with some shitty parts. It happens. Again, when they're asking your hard-earned money, is that acceptable? No, I don't really think so. But again, that's why with this one, I'm going to say like wait for a sale. Still, it's an interesting conversation. So I want to hear what you guys think in the comments because you guys are pretty civil and normal. So let me know. Also, the game had really cool robots. Not enough of them. Anyway. Yeah, let's talk about this stuff. I appreciate you sitting here listening to me ramble. If you watched the Before You Buy and then you came over here to hear me kind of like talk about it more unscripted, I appreciate you. So clicking a like button helps me, but that's it. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Still very busy behind the scenes. I'll be talking about Game Awards stuff soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But I'm Jake Baldino, See you guys next time. Pizza's on me. Subscribe because video games.